All right, first of all, let me say welcome to the intro to 3ds Max 2012 training DVDs from Infinite Skills. Now, throughout this entire video series, you're going to be covering a lot of ground. So I'm just going to talk a little bit at first here about the kind of stuff that we're going to be going over. You can see within the project files that there are a bunch of different images and a bunch of different Max files. Within those Max files, we're going to be covering things from basic modeling. And at first, we'll get into the basic parts of the interface and get you a little bit familiar with where things are and how to navigate. And then we'll be building our robot out of primitives and some modified types of primitives. We'll be going into things such as some pretty high-end modeling for things like our organic fairy character. So we'll go step by step all the way through the entire modeling process and talking about good loops, and actually making sure that the structure of the polygons here follows muscle structure. We'll be getting into other things such as hair and cloth. These cloth objects will end up being simulated to follow and flow with the polygon structure of the mesh as she deforms and moves throughout the scene. We'll also be getting into things such as bone rigging. So let's just go in here to our display tab and turn off our geometry. So you'll end up creating this entire bone rig, as well as, after this, getting into using IK solvers to allow us to move these bones and the mesh on top of it a lot more fluidly and easily. We'll also be looking at things such as using sliders and custom controls for being able to animate and move the fingers of the hands. We will look at matching our scene to an existing photograph, as well as being able to cast shadows and light sources onto elements within that scene to fake the kind of feeling of these two toys being on this table where the kids were coloring. We will go through the stages of blocking in the animation of these characters and then refining and fine-tuning that animation so that as we go, we will end up with two characters that begin a battle. Now, how the epic struggle between fairies and robots started eons ago, that storyline is up to you and why they're battling. But the idea is that by the end of this entire training DVD, you will have a real thorough understanding of 3ds Max, things like the graph editors, track view, and dope sheet, the curve editor and dope sheet, as well as an understanding of the process of animation from the modeling and adding materials through lighting, through camera work, blocking in animation, refining animation, dealing with modeling cloth as well as simulating cloth, creating organic meshes, adding bones to those meshes, dealing with the skinning, the skin morph, and all the way through simple stuff that's like the motion blur on the objects as they move through the scene to make it feel a lot more convincing that they're actually moving in the real world. We'll talk about using things like our parameter curve out of range types for animating the wings and why it's a good or not good process to use all the time. There's a lot of different stuff that we'll cover in here, but by the end of this, you'll have a very finished piece that you can call your own. So in the very final section, we'll end up rendering our video and even adding particle systems and motion effects on those particle systems to again make everything look like it's moving and interacting, the reflections on the table, all that stuff. And once you do it a couple times, it's all pretty straightforward stuff. But again, it's like everything else, it's just practice. So the more you do these things and the more you practice, the easier it gets. So I hope you have fun. I had a lot of fun making the DVDs, and I can't wait to see some of the content you guys produce.